The Pot of Gold and Other Stories by Mary E. Wilkins Freeman. The Pot of Gold. The Flower family lived in a little house in a broad grassy meadow, which sloped a few rods from their front door down to a gentle silvery river. Right across the river rose a lovely dark green mountain, and when there was a rainbow, as there frequently was, nothing could have looked more enchanting than it did rising from the opposite bank of the stream with the wet, shadowy mountain for a background. All the Flower family would invariably run to their front windows and their door to see it. The Flower family numbered 9, Father and Mother Flower and 7 children. Father Flower was an unappreciated poet. Mother Flower was very much like all mothers, and the 7 children were very sweet and interesting. Their first names all matched beautifully with their last name and with their personal appearance. For instance, the oldest girl, who had soft blue eyes and flaxen curls, was called Flax Flower. The little boy, who came next and had very red cheeks and loved to sleep late in the morning, was called Poppy Flower, and so on. This charming suitableness of their names was owing to Father Flower. He had a theory that a great deal of the misery and discord in the world comes from things not matching properly as they should, and he thought there ought to be a certain correspondence between all things that were in juxtaposition to each other, just as there ought to be between the last 2 words of a couplet of poetry. But he found very often there was no correspondence at all, just as words in poetry do not always rhyme when they should. However, he did his best to remedy it. He saw that every one of his children's names were suitable and accorded with their personal characteristics, and in his flower garden, for he raised flowers for the market, only those of complementary colors were allowed to grow in adjoining beds, and, as often as possible, they rhymed in their names. But that was a more difficult matter to manage, and very few flowers were rhymed, or, if they were, none rhymed correctly. He had a bed of box next to one of phlox, and a trellis of woodbine grew next to one of eglantine, and a thicket of elder blows was next to one of rose. But he was forced to let his violets and honeysuckles and many others go entirely unrhymed. This disturbed him considerably, but he reflected that it was not his fault, but that of the man who made the language and named the different flowers. He should have looked to it that those of complementary colors had names to rhyme with each other, then all would have been harmonious and as it should have been. Father Flower had chosen this way of earning his livelihood when he realized that he was doomed to be an unappreciated poet, because it suited so well with his name, and if the flowers had only rhymed a little better, he would have been very well contented. As it was, he never broke it. He also saw to it that the furniture in the little house and the cooking utensils rhymed as nearly as possible, so that was oftentimes a difficult matter to get around and required a vast deal of thought and hard study. The table always stood under the gable window. The footstool always stood where it was cool. The big rocking chair in the glare of sunlight. The lamp, too, kept down cellar where it was there. But all these were rather far-fetched, and sometimes quite inconvenient. Occasionally, being an artist, he could not rhyme until he had spent years of thought over it, and when he did, it would disturb the comfort of the family greatly. There was a spider. He puzzled over that exceedingly, and when he rhymed it at last, Mother Flower or one of the little girls had always to take the spider beside her when she sat down, which was of course quite troublesome. The kettle he rhymed first with nettle, and hung a bunch of nettle over it, till all the children got dreadfully stung. Then he tried settle, and hung the kettle over the settle. But that was no place for it. They had to go without their tea, and everybody who sat on the settle bumped his head against the kettle. At last it occurred to Father Flower that if he should make a slight change in the language, the kettle could rhyme with the skillet and sit beside it on the stove, as it ought, leaving harmony out of the equation to do. Accordingly, all the children were instructed to call the skillet a skettle, and the kettle stood by its side on the stove ever afterward. The house was a very pretty one, although it was quite rude and very simple. It was built of logs and had a thatched roof, which projected far out over the walls, but it was all overrun with the loveliest flowering vines imaginable, and, inside, nothing could have been more exquisitely neat and homelike, although there was only one room and a little garret over it. All around the house, flower beds, vine trees, and shrubs. They were always in the most beautiful order. Now, although all this was very pretty to see, and seemingly very simple to bring to pass, yet there was a vast deal of labor in it for some. The flowers did not look so trim and garden without care, and houses did not look so spotlessly clean without constant care. All the flower family worked hard. Even the littlest children had their daily tasks set them. The oldest girl, especially, was kept busy from morning till night, taking care of her younger brothers and sisters. Now, but for all that she was a very happy little girl, as indeed was the whole family, as they did not mind working, but loved each other dearly. Father Flower, to be sure, felt a little sad sometimes. His lot in life was not exactly chosen. Once in a while, he had great longing for something different. He confided a great many of his feelings to Flaxflower. She was more like him than any of the other children, and could understand him even better than his wife, he thought. One day, when there had been a heavy shower and a beautiful rainbow, he and Flax were out in the garden tying up some rose bushes, which the rain had beaten down, and he said to her, he wished he could find the pot of gold. Flax, if you will believe me, had never heard of it, so he had to tell her all about it, and also say a little poem he had made about it to her. The poem had something this way: oh, what faces shineth so golden clear, at the rainbow's foot on the dark blue. Since the pot of gold shone and shining in that little still, it was a horrible pilgrim's Flax listened with her soft blue eyes very wide. I suppose we should find that pot of gold and make us very rich when we found it, said she. Yes, instead of taking the grand house, the garden, we should no longer have to work so hard. He sighed as he spoke, tears stood in his gentle eyes, very much like Flax's. However, we shall never find it. Don't be foolish, child, said her father. You could not possibly reach it before the rainbow was quite faded away. True, said Flax, but she fell to thinking as she tied up the dripping roses. The next rainbow they had she eyed very closely, standing out on the front doorstep in the rain. She saw that one end of it seemed to touch the ground at the foot of a pine tree on the side of the mountain, which was quite conspicuous among its fellows, it was so tall. The other end had nothing especial to mark it. I will try to end where the tall pine tree is first, said Flax to herself, because that will be the easiest to find. If the pot of gold isn't there, I will try to find the other end. A few days after that, it was very hot and sultry, and at noon the thunderheads were piled high all around the horizon. I don't doubt that we shall have showers this afternoon, said Father Flower when he came in from the garden for his dinner. After the dinner dishes were washed up and the baby rocked to sleep, Flax came to her mother with a petition. Mother, she said, would you give me a holiday this afternoon? Why, where do you want to go, Flax? Said her mother. I want to go over on the mountain and hunt for wildflowers, replied Flax. But I think it is going to rain, child, and you will get wet. That won't hurt me any, Mother, said Flax, laughing. Well, I don't know that I care, said her mother, hesitating. You have been a very good, industrious girl, and deserve a little holiday. Don't go so far that you cannot soon run home if a shower should come up. So Flax curled her flaxen hair and tied it up with a blue ribbon and put on her blue and white check dress. By the time she was ready to go, the clouds blew in the northwest were piled up very high and black, and it was quite late in the afternoon. Very likely her mother would not have let her go on if she had been at home, but she had taken the baby, who had waked up from his nap, and gone to call on her nearest neighbor half a mile away. As far as her father, he was busy in the garden, and all the other children were with him. They did not notice Flax when she stood out of the front door. She passed the river with a pretty arched stone bridge,
nearly opposite the house, and went directly into the wood on the side of the mountain. Everything was very still and dark and solemn in the woods. They knew about the storm that was coming. Now and then, Flax heard the leaves talking in clear little rustling voices. She inherited the ability to understand what they said from her father. They were talking to each other now in the words of her father's song. Very lately he had had a song of some time, and that was how he happened to know it. Oh, what is it, Flax? Flax, how do you believe, Ma? I was like to that. Just the pot of gold. And the Chinese answered, "Good, sweetheart, finished. I'll go that way." Flax did not expect his ground defense on the last question and answered between the maple and pine leaves, but they took no sign as she ran along. She knew just what it was, but she had often been there. Well, she began to squelch through the green clouds and over along the sky. The leaves all tossed about in a strong to a roar, and the branches in the whole tree covered up in flames. As they rolled and twisted about that flames, the rivers fell with the words of the song. Oh, what is it finally? Flax and the rain and the thunder. She was very much afraid of this the tall pine, which was clear away a distance before the sun shone out and the rainbow came. The sun was already breaking through the clouds. Inside of it, light in the ball began. The raindrops on the trees began to shine like diamonds, and the red of the sun rushed out from the midst of the sky. Oh, what is it shining so golden clear? Flax cried for dear life. Clouds were already falling thicker and something was shining wonderfully clear and bright. At last she reached it, and just at that instant the rainbow became a perfect one, and there over the arch of glory was the pot of gold. Flax could see it brighter than they had all the colors of the rainbow. She sank down her saddle and put her hand on it, and she closed her eyes and sat still. Bathed all right that and the long life of the pot made her blind and dizzy. She sat there with her hands on the pot of gold at the foot of the rainbow. She could hear the leaves over her singing louder and louder, till the tone rushed like the wind through her ears. But this time they only sang the last words of the song. And he was afraid and praying for Jesus to make her finished to get in the coffee. She did take up with her ears. And meanwhile, somebody almost a color away, almost with the plate of gold on her hands, stood there and swinging brighter than ever. All the pine needles, with which the grounding magnets were spread, or turned from music down, and some sturdy couplets of leaves which were springing up through her brow gilded. Flax went over it, trembling and like a velvet rushing air. She expected, to find a fold of gold pieces that would buy the grand house and the golden and the maid at the foot of the smoking room, which are installation. She could look in the red house and beat over the pots on inside. The hair she fell was the face of her looking out of the bed. And just the same loving, kindly face she had left at home. Then, when she looked in her, she saw her eyes and into and all the rest of her beautiful brothers and sisters smiling up at her out of the golden moon inside the ball. Alas, she was so again and proceeded into the explosions and the night little black covered hills. Then, finally, she could see the light enter the dim little river on the other side of the evening Yes, I will go home, said she in his boots, but I do want to see the boots look like. So she left the golden bright shining all along under the pine tree and ran home as fast as she could. When she reached the house, it was almost twilight. It was still in the gloom. Avery was moving had to be tied up after the fire, and he was just finishing. He had the king and I didn't like too, since it rained with rain. It certainly was a reason that was very pleased. They needed to house come to know what to do without it, and it was very wonderful to live with it facing to them. Frogs come restlessly into the garden and turn around to her father's neck and kissed him. She hugged her little food and was like that. She was so glad to see him again. Somehow, she never remembered being so glad to see his house. His face to the poet's gold. Dear father, she cried, I saw you kind of come out and you were little. Her father stared at her in amazement. Yes, absolutely, father, said she. But it was not full of gold after all. You was it, and mother, and the father, and the house, and everything. You're mistaken there, said her father, looking at her with a simple, sorrowful eyes. You can leave the house now, forever, with the food on the gold. I served you with the most beautiful gold pieces, with an eagle sinking everywhere. Her sister froze. I never believed you were mother's less. Joey, NPCC, I know better now a pot of gold in New Zealand. So Flash went sorrowfully into the house. There was a teapot sitting beside the stove, besides some medicine soup in it, and the kettle was ready for supper, and there sat the man with a baby head of gold ears in the level, just considered in the pot of gold. Flash had never done so much eating before, she didn't return to small. I found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, mother, she cried. It was not full of gold at all. It had a fine, floating on sky above me, and I saw the house and came to a mile outside of the valley. Yes, Flash, dear, she said. I thought I was mistaken, said Flash. You did not find it. No, said my mother. It was not so and very wise. We will see no more about it. You can sit down and not on the baby now, Mama, and make tea. Flash was completely easy to her as she sat there with her young little baby mother crowing and her grandma cutting out brothers and sisters like dinner. She felt so happy that she did not care. She thought, how pot of gold with the ends of the window